Vegas VIPs in the house. Everybody say ho, ho. VIP Vegas. What up, guy? Sup? Sibo Link. What's up? How are you? How's everyone? PC Patriot should be in the live stream soon. Um, Hope everyone's well. Both of you. Has anyone ever drank? Good guy activism. What's up? Has anyone ever drank Camaranazo shrimp tomato juice cocktail? And I throw a little olive juice in there too, just for good measure. No sodium at all. Hi, Regan. What's up, sup? What is up? Disability advocate, what's up? Brandon Mitchell, how are you? Jeff Ross, how are you? Twisters Music. Let's get that Canadian freak. Hi, Regan. Zero salt, Regan. This is salt free. Shrimp and tomato juice. No salt in there at all. Wilder, what's up, brother? Wilder is the guy who gave me Paco because he wanted to meet a girl in the Philippines, and he did that many times. Good for you, Wilder, man. I'm glad you find yourself a nice girl. Are you bringing her with you this summer? Hopefully your mom's not watching. KGB Inc. What's up? Donna, Goril, what's up? Oregon Rogue, Bill of Rights, 1791. What's up? Sinful Toaster, what's up? Robert Hoyt, how are you? Duper Trooper 50. Come on, PC Patriot, where you at? Nunya Bidnez, what's up? Yeah, I'll give you a ride from the airport, dude. You bringing your girl with you? Douglas Cottrell, what's up? Lou, what's up? Lou, Debbie, how are you? From Australia, how are you? Wilder's watching from the Philippines. Orb Spider, what's up? Steve, what's up? Dan Roth, how are you? Steve Matos, what's up? No Mike. Says no Mike. Okay. If you need to just call me on the phone, PC, you can just call me on the phone, PC, if you can hear me, and I can just put the phone up next to the thing. You don't have to do it that way. Joseph Doe, how are you? Daniel Johnson, how are you? Hi from Massachusetts, Donna. Tony Oliveira, how are you? I love you, Wilder, man. I miss your ass. Him and I used to cook together at the casino, looking at all the casino people of a different gender. Oh, you're not bringing her? I would have loved to meet her, man. I understand, though. She looks like she fit in a suitcase, though, man. Or shipping container, maybe. Just joking. Let's see. Shrimp and tomato juice, drink of champion. Oh, it's good, dude. It's good. White Castle. You still have those? Savage Facts. What's up? It's an 1800 night. Okay. Xander Beaverhouse. Why do you make homophobic comments in your videos? I think you're referring to when I use the FAG word. When we were growing up in Cleveland, and we used to say you're gay or you're a FAG, we didn't mean it as you're a homosexual. We meant it as like you're lame. You know, those weren't always homophobic slurs. It depends where you come from. And me and my friends were like Thunderdome, man. We just let it fly. So I don't think I've done it since Gary Snow, maybe. And he qualifies. So what are you gonna do? Oregon Rogue, South Bama. I hope that answers your question, Xander. Kern County Transparency. What's up? First time here? Hawk fan for life. Much love. Love at Here's the Deal video. Oh, thanks, man. Brian, thanks so much. OCN Blizzard. Greetings from Central Manitoba. Ooh, we're going to talk about a Canadian tonight. I like how he said you aren't shadow banned. Millions are shadow banned. I might not be technically shadow banned the way he's saying it, but ever since I got demonetized, my channel went from gaining, and just came to a complete stop in like 2018 or so, whenever that happened. And for a whole year, people would say, "Oh my God, where have you been?" They send me messages, they send me emails. Where have you been? Where have you been? Where have you been? Because YouTube has shut off notifications how many times now? That it's not a fair playing field. Let's be honest. People who have 3,000 subscribers will get 85,000 views just regurgitating stuff like Frauditor Troll does. It has nothing to do with talent. It has nothing, because if all things were on a fair playing field, I'd be right up there with the rest of them. Audit the audit, don't all of them. We were all on the same pace. As a matter of fact, I was outpacing them by a ton, and then it just jumped off a cliff. Anyway, Xander's a troll. Whatever, he could be a troll. Toe for Life Chronicles. What's up? Who else we got here? Buzzy 181. MAGA Tuesday. All right. Make America gravy again. Uh-oh. PC Patriot in the house. See if I can say hi to everybody. Joko KC, what's up? John Westerland, what's up? Debbie, Danny thoughts. Danny's thoughts, I was thinking. Hi from Indiana. Buzz, what's up? Sociology applied. What's up? MJD, what's up? Your opinion, who is the best auditor over the last 5 years? Jeff Gray, Freeman, Long Island Audit. I am Free Inland Auditing Media. That guy's really good. There's a lot of good ones, man. It's hard to say. You're Canadian? I don't care if you're Canadian, but don't be a Canadian who rips on American activists and lie about being Canadian. Got to go order my sliders. All right. Here you watched Accountability for All. Yeah, I watch him. I watch him all the time. I know him. Danny Cammed Up Caveman. What's up, brother? Bill Rights. South Bama. Patrick DeCambria. What's up? Van 70. What's up? What's that say? Only way to check shadow ban is to go on the same video you post on a VPN and see if you can comment or check your last guy. I see. That's another thing YouTube does. Shuffles around the comments, doesn't let certain comments. Dude, YouTube's becoming Nickelodeon. I'm telling you, please go subscribe to my RUMBLE channel, because I'm sure that's where I'm going to end up, where I can actually be myself. All right. Hey, Pucker Buttface. Nice. Dennis Eggleston, what's up, brother? Roy Dennis, what's up? New Edge Designs, what's up? What's up? Butthurt, what's up? John Eagle, what's up? Exercise and Freedom, what's up? I'm trying to ex bootlegger, what's up? All right, man. I'm sorry if I didn't say hi to you. MJD, Michael Dolan, hi. Okay, we're caught up. All right, so let's bring PC Patriot on. Let's do this.
All right, am I on?
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me okay? This is the first time ever using this microphone, so.
You sound perfect. Everyone hear him okay?
All right, well.
All right, so PC Patriot, I gave him that name because he's a patriot and he's a master on the PC. So he does a job that is sensitive, so to speak. So he has a legitimate reason to be anonymous. But I guarantee you, I know him personally. I speak to him on the phone, and he is a patriot. And he watched the debate between Frauditor Troll and I the other night. And if you remember correctly, the first thing Frauditor Troll brought up was the fact that the Washington State Supreme Court said that people with YouTube channels are not media. So PC Patriot has dug into that, and he's going to break it all down for you. But first, I want him to tell a story he told, if you're cool with that, the one about the Florida hurricane.
Sure.
Back
in the 90s, I was down in Florida in the St. Pete area. I did some support down there for the city, and they had a big hurricane that was coming in, and they needed somebody inside the city building, big, like, tall skyscraper city building, and they needed somebody to stay there for the entire weekend, to live literally off of a couch in an office room, just to be on call in case anything happened and needed some, tech support. So that's what I did for a weekend.
And that was during a hurricane, right?
Yeah, that was during a hurricane.
And that was right on the water, right?
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah, St. Pete, right on the water.
So in other words, a hurricane could have come through while you're in that building.
They had big. It's probably the safest building you could have been in all of St. Pete. They had giant steel shutters and stuff that covered all the windows, and I mean they locked the building down. Once you went in, you were there for the weekend.
Okay.
So
Did you have to
yeah,
bring food and stuff?
yep, yep. You went in and that's it. You were there. It
Did the
was from
power ever go out?
nope. It was from Friday to Sunday night.
And how do you get a job like that again?
I just happened to work for a support company, and they basically went around and said, "Hey, anybody want to spend the weekend in the building?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got nothing else to do. Sure."
Okay. Right
So
on.
it was really
All
just
right.
happened to be the
So
right place.
PC again, Frauditor Troll brought up the Washington State Supreme Court case, and you
Yeah,
broke it down for me last night on the phone, and I want you to do the exact same thing right now.
yeah. So basically, he started off with, what part of the First Amendment do you exercise? I think that was his first question, and you
Right,
said,
right.
press. So you
Hmm.
replied press immediately, and I'm going to call him fraud guy because he's the fraud.
Of
So
course.
fraud guy says, good, that's what I hear often. And then he starts into it. And he says, the Supreme Court of Washington has ruled that having a camera and YouTube channel doesn't make you press. And that's literally his entire argument right there. The
Right.
Supreme Court of Washington says that having a camera and a YouTube channel doesn't make you press. Doesn't go into anything else. That's his entire basis for his argument. And this is flawed extremely on the part of the case, because the case wasn't about if he was press or his YouTube channel is press. So basically, when you start digging into the case, and I've got a ton of stuff here, I'll probably go off sideways a little bit here and there, just to throw in some points because he touches on them. I actually went through about half the video today and just went through each one of the points they made about until he got about halfway through. I couldn't take them anymore. So I got a bunch of stuff to touch on with that if you want to go that far.
Go for it. We got about
So
an hour. Let's do an hour.
all right. So it's the Washington State Supreme Court handed down a decision in a case where it was asked to decide whether a guy with a YouTube channel counts as, quote, news media for the purposes of certain state laws. So in the state laws, they have this phrase called news media, and then they define what news media is. So they said no, he doesn't qualify as news media in certain purposes of state laws. And then you start digging into the case as to what the state laws are. And basically, this guy, Brian Green, filed the public documents request for any and all records of official photos and or birth dates and or rank and or position and or badge number and or date of hire and or whatever for all the detention center and jail personnel and deputies that he had an issue with.
Now, was
Under
this an auditor?
uh, he goes by Liberty Champion, and he's got a YouTube channel. And he reports on the news in I believe it's the Seattle, Washington area. So he does his own news channel, if you will. And I don't know, he probably does audits too. I'm not really sure. I didn't go look at his
And
channel.
his case was in 2021, right?
So it was resolved in 2021. I think this actually happened. According to this, it was for deputies on duty in November of 2014. So it
Okay.
actually went back quite a ways. So under the state law, photographs and birthdays are redacted from public document requests for public employees' personnel records, except for requests made by members of the, quote, news media. So this is where the news media term comes into play that they defined earlier. So now they have to define what news media is. So Green argued that because he maintains a YouTube site or channel called Liberty's Champion, where he sometimes posts videos discussing local politics, He therefore counts as news media, and therefore the exception should apply to him. And the question before the court is green news media? But that is specifically applying to the public records request law to get the birth dates and stuff like that, which they wouldn't normally give out. But if you qualify under their definition of news media, you can get this information. So then he goes, he asks, well, what's the relevant definition of news media as codified in the state law? So their state law says any newspaper, magazine, or other periodical, book publisher, news agency, wire service, radio, television station, or network, cable, satellite station, network, or audiovisual production company, or any entity, that's a key word, that is a regular business of news gathering and disseminating news or information to the public by any means, including but not limited to print, broadcast, photographic, mechanical, internet, or electronic distribution. So that's the first part that he has to qualify for. And because it says entity, that comes into play later on. Then it says that's the first part of what makes news media. The second part is any person who has been employee, agent, or independent contractor of any entity listed in of the subsection, who is or has been engaged in bona fide news gathering for such entity, and who obtained prepared the news or information that is sought while serving in that capacity. So he has to, in order to meet this qualification to be news media, according to that particular state law, which is dealing with public records requests, it's a two-part analysis. And they go on to state, the court interpreted this in the case. It said, first, the purported member of the news media must fall under one of the listed traditional news outlets in the general term entity. Second, it must be engaged in a regular business of news gathering and disseminating news and information to the public. And he says, Liberty Champions fails the first part of that test. Therefore, it does not meet the statutory definition of news media. So at this point, they've basically looked at it and said, according to what the law says is news media, you don't meet that. In order to receive the dates of birth and other personal information of the employees in your public record request. Doesn't mean he's not news media or the ability to, a journalist or anything like that. It's just for this particular piece of the law.
So just to summarize, there's in the Washington state law in 2007 and 2007, right? When YouTube wasn't really a thing.
Yep.
They define news media as basically having an LLC and having employees because the internet wasn't the main source of information at that point. So they defined it according to the times, so to speak.
Correct. So that's actually coming up here shortly. That's going to be, so I've actually got what they call it in 2007.
Okay.
And so, and you'll find that he doesn't apply in that design or that definition. Mm-hmm. But under the doctrine, the word entity must be interpreted to embrace something that is similar in nature to the specific types of traditional news outlets listed in the statute. So the statute actually lists the types of news outlets. So under the plain meaning of the statute, the word entity cannot be construed to include an individual. An entity is like a company and not an individual, where this guy is an individual and is not a company. So right away they say, well, it's not the same thing. So then the court proceeded to blame it on the legislature. The court basically said, and I'll get to the opinion and the dissenting opinion later on, but the court basically said that we have to follow to the letter of the law what the legislature has put out. So the legislature enacted the current statutory definition of news media in 2007. And that statute has never been amended since. So in 2007, the world was literally a different place. So in 2007, it was unlikely the legislature could foresee how social media would advance and become an instrumental part of our daily lives. As social media developed, so has a new cycle of news. So they've admitted that with social media, it can absolutely be a function of the news, but by their definition, their old definition, it doesn't meet that.
So in 2021, the Supreme Court of Washington had to go by the 2007 definition of media.
Yep. And blame the legislature because they can't codify it any differently. They have to use the words legislature, and the legislature never updated it to be more current. So you're stuck in 2007 from that. And it went on to say the legislature, not the court, is responsible for enacting statutes, and the court is bound by the statute's unambiguous language. In short, the court decided that the person can't be an entity. For the purposes of the definition of news media, an entity must be a separate legal identity from the person doing the news reporting. So that's why he didn't qualify in that stance of it. And it goes. I mean, I'm not going to read all of it,
but the only thing he didn't qualify, he qualified for all public records except detailed birthdays and personal information that they were willing to give to an entity because they trusted the entity to redact all that stuff.
Correct.
Whereas they didn't trust an individual to redact that stuff.
Correct. And
nothing to do with the defining who's media and who's not.
Right. And it comes down to the news media that comes from this. It comes from what's called the Shield Law. And the Shield Law is what protects these journalists from being, like search orders to find their sources and stuff like that. So part of the Shield Law prohibits the government from issuing, like subpoenas and stuff like that to force a journalist to give up their information. And so because the Shield Law, part of it, the reason why I think they have this separated out like that is if everybody in the public is press, which we are under the First Amendment, then the Shield Law would literally protect every single person that is press. So they have to define somewhere, where's that line drawn where we're talking about a journalist's confidential source information and the criminal who just doesn't want to turn his drug dealer friend, right? Yeah. So there's got to be, you can't just go in there and say, well, everybody is a confidential source, or everybody is a journalist, or everybody is media. So that's why they broke this up, reasonably so, under the Shield Law. And then it continues on, all about the Shield Law, and there's a bunch of other legal garbage in here. Like I said, it's pretty boring and goes through, but ultimately it comes down to then the Supreme Court has to rule, and the Washington State Supreme Court had to rule on the case and figure out, and it's going to be a precedential case in this case because it wasn't a precedent before, so they have to decide. So in the case and the opinion of the High Court, Green was actually suing the Pierce County, I think, Sheriff's Department for the records, and Thurston County Superior Court judge found that Green in his YouTube channel counts as news media. So he actually won when he took it to court. But then the police appealed that to the Supreme Court of Washington State. So the local court said, yeah, you are news media and you should have this. And then when they appealed it, they took it to the Supreme Court, and the High Court reversed the decision of the lower court and said, we conclude that the statutory definition of news media requires an entity with a legal identity separate from the individual, and wrote in a majority 7-2 opinion Thursday. Here, Brian Green has not provided, here Brian Green has not proved that he or the Liberty's Champion YouTube channel meets the statutory definition of news media, and thus is not entitled to the exempted records. So under their Public Record Acts, he's not entitled to it. Now, under the First Amendment and the freedom of press, that goes federal. That's much higher. That stomps all over this decision. So then it goes on. The opinion also acknowledged that the media landscape has drastically changed since the state's defining of the news media written 14 years ago. The manner in which we access news today is vastly different than how we did in 2007, and this statutory definition may not comport with the current intersection of social media and the news. However, the legislature, not the court, is responsible for enacting statutes, and the court is bound by the statute's unambiguous language. So they're saying their hands are tied. They have to uphold what the statute says. It's very clear in what it says, and therefore he's found not to be quote unquote news media for the purposes of a public records request.
And only for that.
Pretty much. I mean, there's other places in other pieces of laws that use the same definition of news media, but not as the not for like actually being considered news media outside the sources of that very specific piece of the law. So there are other places where it could be. In fact, the Public Record Act, it says, was created to inform people of Washington and the actions of the state agencies and to ensure access to the records of the same. It requires state agencies to produce records at the public's request. Certain records related to public employment, including photographs and the month and year of birth of people who work at the state criminal agencies, are exempt from public records. However, members of the, quote, news media are entitled to those exempt records. So this is the part that he was not getting. He was just not getting two pieces. And I think he eventually came out and said, I don't even need those pieces. I just felt I was entitled to them. So that's what he was fighting for.
Right. And
so
the judge's opinions.
Well, that's the 7-2 decision. That's the 7 side saying that. So even though they're upholding it, they're saying it's not our fault. Basically, they're like sorry they have to do this. Which is, so they recognize the First Amendment aspect of it, and they have no choice, and that's what they wrote. So then, of course, with this lawsuit, like anything else, when you get a case like this, you get amicus briefs, which are, people, friends of the court, that send in their thoughts on the subject. So a lot of, like, when you have a major suit going on, somebody like the Institute for Justice may send an amicus brief to a Supreme Court or a circuit court in support of maybe a defendant and explaining why it's important for them to rule in the favor to support the first or second or third or whatever amendment that they're going after. So in this case, the First Amendment Clinic at Duke Law School sent an amicus brief and argued the definition of news media must be construed broadly so as to not infringe on the First Amendment freedom of the press. So they're recommending to the court to side on the defendant, or the Green, the guy who's suing, side on his side for allowing for the fact that it's going to infringe on his First Amendment right to free press. And it says, however, there's no freedom of press implications if there is no news media. Further, there is no First Amendment right to the public information. You don't have a First Amendment right to get public information. And then it continues on. And it says, the public's right to access information generated or controlled by the government, nor do they guarantee press any basic right of access superior to that of the public generally. So typically the press, you always hear people say, anywhere the public can go, the press can go.
That's
because they have the same rights as the public. Being the press, you can have the same exact rights as the public.
Because the public is the press.
And vice versa. So
yeah,
press is just public. So that's why they can generally have access. Any place the public is allowed, the press is allowed, and vice versa. So that's what.
Go ahead.
Well, that's what they're saying. Otherwise, except for that, they've cut out this little piece and said, well, in this case, if you apply for public records access, if you're what we consider news media, we'll supply additional information we wouldn't normally give the public. So that was from the First Amendment clinic at Duke Law School that was sending an amicus brief in support of Green, the guy who was suing. So then there was a dissenting opinion. So two of the justices didn't agree with this opinion. And they're like, well, we're going to write why we disagree with it, right? So there was here the important part says, thus, Liberty Champions, Green's YouTube channel, cannot be precluded from counting as news media simply because it lacks a separate legal identity from Green. And it says Liberty Champion also meets the second requirement, which the majority does not reach. It is engaged in regular business of news gathering and disseminating news or information. I therefore would affirm the trial court and remand for further proceedings in line with this opinion. The core of the statutory interpretation is plain language analysis to qualify as an entity. The thing in question must have a separate legal identity from an individual or must be an organization. This becomes clear when you look at the other terms of the statute, such as newspaper. So in the statute, it uses the generic term newspaper. And it says, while major newspapers like Seattle Times and the New York Times are, of course, organizations with separate legal entities, nothing in our statutory language requires it. And then he goes on and says, this does not suggest that the newspaper itself must have or be run by an organization to be considered the term newspaper, thus encompassing not only the New York Times, but also the high school newspaper and your community newspaper and the like. So if they're going to use a generic term like newspaper and somehow define that to be part of a news media, how does that apply to the high school newspaper that may publish something that has their own individual sources? It's certainly not an entity. It's certainly not a for-profit entity, but yet it's still a newspaper. Or is it not a newspaper? So she's saying that if you're going to call it just news media, why is not a newspaper so defined? Which I think is a very valid argument on her part. Mm-hmm. And then she goes on and says that Liberty Champion easily meets the definition of news based on the record. So looks at the articles and says such items are similar to a recent article in an online edition of Seattle Times. So she went and found an article on Seattle Times that matches similarly an article that he published in his YouTube channel. And it says, which dealt with the reported dangerous behavior of Pierce County Sheriff. As this comparison makes clear, Liberty's champion is news. So two of the justices basically came out and said, he is news. He does qualify. You can't hold it to that very specific definition. But since it's 7-2, they lost, right? That's why it's a dissenting opinion.
And didn't one of the dissenting opinions say something specifically about the Constitution and First Amendment?
So then it goes on, and she writes, perhaps most importantly, however, this interpretation follows the intent of the legislature. If the legislature wanted to prevent the release of this information, it is well within the power to draft a bill that would do so. But the law as it stands requires the release of this information due Liberty Champion's status as news media. So the justice had dissented, and she said also, from the there's two of them that dissented, right? I don't know, it doesn't identify which one specifically said this, but one of the two that dissented did. And it says, from the perspective of the First Amendment, distinguishing different news media based on size or organizational structure or status as a legal entity is disfavored, if not outright impermissible. And then it said Whitener, so it was Whitener, the same one, wrote, to hold that the state law provides otherwise, as a majority does, risk construing the statute in an unconditional or unconstitutional manner, a result we must avoid. So she's saying that if you deem this person not news media for any of this type of stuff, that you're going against the Constitution of the United States and in an unfavorable manner, and we need to avoid doing that. And so in her conclusion, she wrote, I would hold that Liberty Champion is news media under the RCW, therefore satisfies the requirements of the RCW, entitling Green to the documents and information he requested. I would therefore affirm the trial court's decision. So that's pretty much the opinions on both sides and the dissenting opinion. And I think the dissenting opinion certainly gets it right. But all of this is got to do with literally two pieces of information in a public records law, and not whether he is news media or not. They clearly, all of them, by their admissions of telling them that the state statute is behind, the legislature should fix this, we blame the legislature, and then the two dissenting ones that say, I don't care what the legislature says, I say they are. So everybody pretty much is rock solid on this guy is news media.
And it's obvious.
Well, it's obvious to somebody that understands what they are talking about in general. And the fraud guy, he is oblivious to any of the facts. He doesn't read it. He cherry picks the little bullet points that he wants to put out there in his favor. And he did it with a bunch of other stuff too. Like I said, I went through the first, half of the thing again today and took a bunch of notes on it. But the Supreme Court also, this is the Supreme Court. I believe this one was, this is the United States Supreme Court. So what does the United States Supreme Court say about this? Because let's face it, the Washington Supreme Court is meaningless to 49 states. And in this case, if it goes above their head, it's going to be meaningless to their state too. But the Supreme Court had noted, although it has been uncertain whether people who blog or use other social media are journalists entitled to the protection of media shield laws. So the media shield laws are, again, not being able to be forced to give up your sources and stuff. They are protected by the free speech and free press clauses, neither of which differentiates between media businesses and non-professional speakers. This is further supported by the Supreme Court, which has refused to grant increased First Amendment protection to institutional media over other speakers. So if you're John Q. Public and you want to talk out loud and exercise your free speech or film something that's going on, they have no more or less rights than you do in the Supreme Court's eyes. So it says, in the case of involving campaign finance laws, and court rejected the suggested communications by corporate members of the institution press is entitled to greater constitutional protection than the same communication by non-institutional press businesses. So that's that's the Supreme Court basically saying that all that other stuff that they did is just kind of bullshit, really. That's the bottom line.
So in 2007, the courts in Washington ruled that there's two types of media: independent, regular, free press, and then an entity style media who's incorporated, who can get extra information like dates of birth and personal names because they thought that the entity had an obligation to redact those, or they trusted them, versus the average Joe citizen that didn't have a license and media and government permission to run a big operation could just take all that information and publish it all willy-nilly. So they were scared. They were trying to protect somebody's personal information.
that I believe that's the general gist of the way I read it. Now there was another article. I couldn't re-find it again because once you find something on the internet you may never see it again. But
Yeah.
there was another good article that also touched upon that, and um the general consensus on that is that back in the day, so if you go back to like 40s and 50s and that kind of stuff in the newspaper and uh, institutional um, um, institutional press, and you had legit when I say legit, I don't mean I'm not taking anything away from the home activists press, but you have the investigative journalists that used to go dig everywhere they could, turn up these scoops and go back, and then literally the next day in the paper, great big headlines, stop the presses. And they were putting out this information that they scooped on everybody else. So those investigative journalists needed to have some of this information in order to track down the information they were looking for. So the reason why they were given the personal information was not so that they could use it in print form or take it and display it to the public over YouTube, but was so that when they had the actual person's full name, date of birth, and everything, and then you go researching and searching and try and find the guts on this guy to put out there in your news article, you made sure you had the right guy. So having the correct birthday and all of that
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
that
You
was
need more accurate reporting too.
exactly. You weren't right. Exactly. And so it's not so much that they entrusted the news agency. The concept was that they were using this to find the evidence they need to bring to light. And of course, it was the whole system was a lot less corrupt. Now today they protect everything, they don't give anything out, and the fact that a news media today can still get that information is somewhat questionable. If we can't get it as individuals, again, they shouldn't be having additional rights that we don't have. So
Exactly.
either we all get it
That's
or we
kind of
all don't
discrimination.
get it.
Isn't that that's kind of discriminatory, is it not?
I think that there were, they brought up the pros and cons in the article I was reading. And some of the pros are obviously the investigative journalists, but the cons are also you have victim names and stuff that they give to the press in hopes that they don't release them. You have victims that are underage potentially that you don't want that name getting out. And once you
Sure.
give it to them, now you're entrusting them to keep that stuff in strict confidence, but you don't know what could happen to it. The guy could lose his notebook, somebody finds it, gets the name, who knows, right? So every extra person that has potential information that isn't necessary to the story, that's just one more place where it could leak and turn into something worse. So I think that was like one of the pro and con arguments to the whole whether the information should have been given out anyways. But in the grand scheme of whether he is news media or not, I think it clearly defines that he is news media. He's not news media based on the Public Records Act requests. And I don't think any of them, I don't think any of them said that he wasn't news media. Whereas, what fraud guy says is this is a quote. I went back, I quoted it right out of the debate. He says, the Supreme Court of Washington has ruled having a camera, nothing in there had to do with the camera. Having a camera and YouTube channel doesn't make you press. That's what he said the ruling
That's
was.
what Frauditor Troll said.
Exactly. And absolutely nowhere in the decision does it say anything about a camera or having a YouTube channel and whether you're press or not. It's got everything has to do with whether you meet the definition of news media to get the person's birthday. So that is an outright, that's again, you cherry pick two pieces out of the entire decision and then put your own sentence around it and say, this is what they said. That's just an outright fraud. And So that's where, I mean, and then from there, then he goes in. The next talking point that you guys bring up is poster 7, right? So you
Hmm.
start digging into poster 7, and the first thing he does when he starts looking at poster 7 is he says, well, let's look for this part called soliciting and peaceful protesting. So at no time do we ever look at poster 7 and say, we're in here to solicit, which is sell shit, and peacefully protest, because that's a limited public forum and you don't have the right to peacefully protest in there. So he starts off with the two things that none of them do. No that goes into the post office is there to peacefully protest or
No.
solicit. So
Right.
that's not even remotely close. And right away you say the comma, because I know the exact sentence you were talking about in the photographs, and it deals with a comma. But he misconstrues who can limit you when you photograph in the building. He thinks all employees of the post office are authorized to limit your First Amendment, because he points out authorized people. Just
And he
being
thinks
an
that's not anybody working there.
Right, exactly. That's exactly how he used it. If they ask you, and they could be anybody at all, then they're all authorized. And that's not true. The one that's authorized to be able to grant or deny that right is the postal inspectors, and the not even the postmaster of the post office is capable of authorization to remove your right to film in the lobbies, foyers, corridors, all of that stuff. And the comma, and I've seen the cop get this wrong so many times, right? Whenever a cop reads poster 7 in a post office audit, he gets to that last sentence, and the last line says, and auditoriums when used for public meetings. So what he misses is the comma prior to that. So it separates the foyers, the lobbies, and the corridors as open areas,
Right.
and each one of those is separated by a comma. And then the last part of it is and auditoriums when used for public meetings. And they immediately take the when used for public meetings and apply that to corridors, lobbies, and foyers. And that's not what it says. It's strictly if the post office has an auditorium and it gets used for public meetings, it also applies in there. And so he did exactly that same thing when he's reading that, is he's thinking, that you can't just do this and wear signs, and yeah, right, and you can't film where there's signs that say you can't film. Well, the signs aren't that you can't film. The signs are, this is a restricted area, this is employees only, this is a locked door, this is no public access, whatever the case may be. You clearly cannot go into that area and film, but if you can see it, you can film it.
Sure. In
So
public.
so everything that he says about poster 7, first of all, he doesn't even start in the right place, and secondly, he doesn't comprehend who an authorized employee is, and he thinks if you take a piece of paper and write on it with a marker, no cameras, and stick it on your window, you're out of there, trespassed.
Right. Right.
And that's all wrong. And
Maybe.
basically,
Go ahead.
well, in the way he speaks, and his understanding, I believe he's Canadian too, and I don't think
Oh,
it.
we're like 99.9% sure he's
Right.
Canadian.
Well, I think so, because he has the equivalent of like a third grade English class reading, and doesn't he's not comprehending these sentences the way they're intended to be read. So I for that reason, I can't believe, you get past third grade, you should know what a comma is and what it means. And that's why I won't go into the whole police aspect of that, but
So,
certainly for him.
so, uh, and I believe it was 2018, when the whole auditing post offices thing got, really ubiquitous. I think the word is very common. It was happening a lot,
Mhm.
and the big dogs at the post office, uh, were seeing how their ignorant employees were reacting to everybody and just acting like straight hood rats and screaming and yelling and calling the cops. So they put out a memo to all the employees of the post office. It was an internal memo, but it got leaked, and Long Island Auto got a hold of it somehow. God bless them.
Right.
And the memo said, this is another thing he completely ignored, and then claimed that we already agreed you can't record in a post office. The memo sent, the internal memo that was leaked that was sent to the post office employees literally said, the public's allowed to record in there. Do not confront them. Do not yell at them. Do not call the cops on them. Do not record them back. And on and on and on. I made a video about it. Long Island Audit also made a video about it. And he says that, yeah, but that was leaked. In other words, since it was leaked and it wasn't supposed to be leaked, it didn't happen. I mean, what are you trying to say?
Exactly. It was leaked. Therefore, that's not valid. No. But the ones that are valid that go along with that, part of that also comes down to the Homeland Defense freaking memo of 2010 that I believe was updated as well in like 2019 or something. The first one redacted, the second one unredacted, and basically that covers all federal facilities, including the post office. And Poster 7 just happens to be exactly that's the federal law. It's been the same thing for many, many years. I mean, some of those posters are dated 2007, right? Mm-hmm. Or even some of them in the 1990s, I believe I've seen. And they all say the same basic phrasing. They've changed the design slightly, but it's the same words because it's just a print of the federal law. And so that is the rules and conduct on federal property. It's not even really designated to the post office itself. That's the same thing. If you walk into the federal buildings or any other places, those are what you are. That's why you can't carry a firearm in a post office. It's because you can't in any federal building. So yeah, that's exactly right. And so their internal email memo that they sent out to everyone is just codifying the poster that's stuck right on the wall of most post offices anyways. It's basically telling them to do that.
All right. Let's wrap this up, man. This is a PC Patriot, a nickname I gave him because he's a patriot and he's a master on the PC. He showed me how to do everything on my PC.
Before you disappear, I would like to just address maybe one or two more points that were made during the discussions.
Sure.
You know, I had a bunch here written because, like I said, I went through the whole half of it, but I'll skip some of it. But one of them that I didn't want to skip was his discussion on you being a journalist, right? Because he basically said, you're not a journalist. You don't know what a journalist is. So, and he completely doesn't understand what a journalist is. So I went into that as well. And it says a journalist is, you know, he's going a misconstrued argument. He says, we established that you are not allowed to record in the post office. That's what you just said earlier, right? And
that's what Frauditor Troll
said.
That's
right. Fraud guy, the fraud guy. Yeah, he's a fraud. This was a delusional point he made up in his own mind from a total misunderstanding of Poster 7, the lack of understanding of the definition of journalist. So I looked up the definition of journalist. I've looked it up in a few places just to get what is a journalist in order to define this form, because he doesn't get the definition. So Webster's Dictionary, that's the oldest one, been around for a long time, right? So Webster's Dictionary, first definition 1A, a person engaged in journalism, especially a writer or editor for a news medium. Okay. So then 1B is a writer who aims at a mass audience. The second definition, so that's 1A and 1B, which basically is, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. You writer, editor, you create you report the news, and you aim at a mass audience. So far, you meet that full definition. Then 2, a person who keeps a journal. And you specifically stated during it that, you know, because he called you, they said you weren't a journalist. You said, I've journaled my whole life for 20 years on here. Or
since
something.
2011.
Right. So you said that this is, you're journaling your life, and that's exactly what it is. Technically, the definition of the word journalist comes back from a person who journals his day-to-day life. So you are, all you have to do is keep any type of record whatsoever, and you are a journalist. Then Wikipedia, a journalist is an individual who collects, gathers information in the form of text, audio, or pictures, processes it into newsworthy form, and disseminates it to the public. The act or process mainly done by the journalist is called journalism. Once again, perfect definition for you. Another website, vocabulary.com. A journalist is a person whose job involves writing nonfiction news stories for newspapers, magazines, or online news sites. If you are reading or hearing a news story, you have a journalist to thank for providing that story. One type of journalist is a reporter who researches topics and interviews people before writing a story or producing a piece for TV. Editors, photographers, and columnists can also be described as journalists, particularly if they work for a newspaper. Another kind of journalist is a person who regularly writes in a journal or diary. Journalist comes from the old French word journal, day or day work, which became the journal publication. Then Encyclopedia Britannica. I tried to pick all the top names of, history making, long-term respectability. The Britannica calls it journalism, a collection, preparation, and distribution of news and related commentary and feature materials such as print and electronic media as newspaper, magazines, books, blogs, webcasts, podcasts, social networking, and social media sites and email, as well as through radio, motion picture, and TV. The word journalism was originally applied to the report of current events in printed form, specifically newspapers, but with the advent of radio, television, and the internet in the 20th century, and the use of the term broadened to include all printed and electronic communications dealing with current affairs. All that, dude, is you and me and anybody else that wants to do it. And then the media, the aspect, he gets into it about 14 and a half minutes in. Fraud guy says, you said you're a journalist and I just proved you're not. That's a quote, direct quote from him. And you argued that both media and Fraud guy argues he is entertainment and not media.
He's more media than entertainment because he's not entertaining at all. He's not funny.
I agree. He's more fraud, so he's not. But you're not, though. You are the media, and the argument is that he's arguing that you're not a journalist, right? So media is the plural of medium. A medium is an individual piece. Media is any piece. Broadly describes all channels of communication, including everything in printed paper to digital data. Media comprises of news, art, educational content, and any form of information that can reach or influence people, including television, radio, books, magazines, and the internet. And you're clearly arguing that you're media, and he's arguing that you're entertainment, which by definition, entertainment is part of media as well as all the other shit that goes along with it. So every place in his argument that he pulls out this, he's got no command of the English language. He doesn't understand these definitions, doesn't look them up or educate himself to know them. So I know them, you know them, but I've never put them on paper in front of myself to read them. Because I grew up with them.
Common sense.
That's right. So, and since we're not dealing with somebody with common sense, what we have to do is go find out what the defining people or groups say that match your points of argument. So, and then 2 hours in later on, he says, "We have established you are not media again, right?" He said, this is 2 hours. 2 hours later, he says, "We have established you are not media. We have proved it. The Supreme Court in Washington proved it." Every time there is an argument, again, this is what he's saying, right? Every time there is an argument from the court, which is what decides what is and what isn't. And so he's going back after 2 hours back to the Washington argument, saying that the court decides what is and what isn't. And the court clearly is saying, we don't decide that. That's what the legislature defined it as. We do find you to be news media, but not for the public records request because that's how it's written. And then he goes on and he says, "You're not a journalist, you're an entertainer." This is the exact quote again. You're not a journalist, you're an entertainer. We already established that. Now you are playing with words now. Having a video journal makes you a journalist. That was a question he posed to you. He says, now you are playing with words. Having a video, because you said, I journal my life since 2011. And he's saying, and that's exactly what we just defined in all of those, you know.
He said I was like playing with words, and I have all the words, and that's why I have so many subs, because I have all the good words.
Correct. So, but Britannica supports you, Wikipedia supports you, vocabulary.com supports you, and Webster's Dictionary supports you in your decision, and yet he wants to make that other claim. So then you asked him, you said, what is a journalist? And Fraud Guy, he responded with, a journalist is a guy that investigates a story that is separate from himself. And every time a story happens, it's, oh, look, somebody pepper sprayed me. So that's what he's saying is what you believe you are as a journalist, because he's seen, and then he called out like Casey Camera Guy. He goes, oh, he sprays everyone, right? Well, I've watched. Right. I've watched Casey Camera Guy. He's funny as shit. The guy is really respectful until you cross the line. And then if you attack him, yeah, I wouldn't blame him. I'd spray too. But then it says, yeah, John states, it's all media, press, etc., gathering content and disseminating it to the public. And that's the literal definition from the Supreme Court. That's the literal definition from the Supreme Court. And you know, so it's just right. It just get like I said, I picked apart so much of his shit. He starts talking about Amagansett Press and frickin' media and how they're not auditing like government agencies. They're auditing and disrupting businesses and stuff. And that's another whole
anything. People just get butthurt when you point a camera in the direction and they lose their mind for some reason.
They are literally doing what they're allowed to do, which is walking down the street, right? So for public, that I call that public auditing. So by definition, the public or another member of the public cannot violate your civil rights. It takes the government to violate your civil rights. Your civil rights, or the Bill of Rights specifically, is the rules that the government has to follow to protect you. Your rights are inalienable. You're born with them. So, and this is what stops them from the government from taking them away. But a person, another public person, private person on the street cannot violate your civil rights because they don't have any control over you from a governmental standpoint. So I call that one public auditing. Walking down the street filming is just as much a protected activity as filming the police, the post office, the city clerk, the water district, and any other public venue. Public parks, public meetings, farmers markets, or protests held in public venues on public property. All of those are legitimate places. And if a Karen comes out and freaks out because she doesn't understand your rights or her own or his own, I'm all for those. The object is to promote civil rights and protecting your rights, and this educates people on the street, and they educate so many people. So many people support them. Other people freak out because they don't know what's going on and they just can't handle it. But that's that was another point that he brought up, and I just wanted to touch on that one because I think that although it's not a government audit specifically, they're in public and they're doing perfectly legal public stuff, and people have to learn that there's nothing wrong with that.
All right.
So there you go. That's it.
100% right. We're at an hour and 5 minutes. I believe tomorrow night, Auditing Erie County is going to come on with me, and I guess Frauditor Troll made a BS live video about him too, so we're going to cover it, and he's going to tell the truth of what happened. Actually, he won the case, and Frauditor Troll lied and committed fraud against him too. If you're still up for that, Dan, Auditing Erie County, Dan Erie County.
Right.
I'm looking forward to that. So tomorrow night it'll be auditing Erie County and I covering one of Frauditor Troll's fraud videos about him. In the meantime, this gentleman you've been listening to tonight, his name is PC Patriot. He's a patriot. He knows everything about PCs. I gave him that name on the fly. It sounds nice to me, in my opinion. It comes off the tongue nice. I can't thank you enough for being here, man. I really appreciate all the help you've given me over the past year and in general. And I thank you for coming on, my man.
Hey, no problem. It's a pleasure. Hope to do it again.
We will do it again. All right.
Yep.
All right, sir. I'll see you. Have a good night. Thanks again.
All right. Bye.
I'll call you. Bye. All right, everybody. There it is. So tomorrow night, Auditing Erie County and I are going to go over one of Troll's videos, the Canadian $1.6 million house, bragging about his brand new Gucci shoes on the couch. That's another video. I'm going to thank you so much, Shake and Break. Thanks, everybody who donated. Thanks, everybody for gifted memberships. I don't even know how that works. Thanks, everybody who's already a member. You guys are going to be my lifeblood. YouTube sucks anymore. Unfortunately, that's where everyone is until I can get everybody over to my RUMBLE channel. And if you ever want to download the J app, J app, that's a good way that if you just type someone's name in that J app, anything they put on any social media platform, you will know about. So, and you can't even say that app's name on here because YT is a little butthurt that somebody actually figured out a way to cut them out of the loop, so to speak. That's it. Tomorrow I'm gonna put out a video from Frauditor Troll that he buried and deleted, where him and his significant other, like, this is my house. Like, oh wait, that's not our voice. Ta-da! We're gonna flex our wait, man, I can't do it right now. I want to rebuttal. There it is. Ta-da! We're gonna show off our $1.6 million house. Look at these Gucci shoes. They're on the couch. They haven't even been worn yet. I have to break them in because they're like a size 14, and I'm like a size 17, double G. So look at our house. Ta-da! Look at our computers. Ta-da! We have 2 violins. Ta-da! What are you doing? Ta-da! You can't get this house on a goat herder salary. Ta-da! So that is the greatest voice to imitate. Thank you, everybody. PC Patriot Dude, thanks so much. Thanks for reading all that. Thanks for breaking it down for me last night and again today on this live stream. Jordan, PC Patriot's like a loser, and that's just a fact. Okay. John, the mic was hot when you said Filax was tough. I know he's tough, but you don't want everyone to hear you say he's tough. And that's a fact. I got a video of him telling his subscribers that he hit a hit and run. Okay. All right, man. I don't know how much time or videos or energy I'm going to spend on Frauditor Troll, but just enough to expose that he's a Canadian fraud who lies about everybody, cuts videos short, lies through omission, lies through obfuscation, lies through deception. Everything an ignorant American is, plus some, because he's not even American, and he cannot let that secret get out that he's not American, and living in Canada in somebody else's house, because there's no way those 2 Neanderthals, those big sacks of potatoes, have $1.6 million house. Then again, I could be wrong. Maybe he's some genius, but I doubt you have a $1.6 million house and you spend all your time playing StarCraft and making videos about auditors because you're so butthurt. He's probably a failed auditor, honestly, like Orange Man Audits. You want a song? Give me a song. Give me a song, and I'll finish this thing with a song. It comes down to paying for a product or service has been paid for. Why do we not have access to it? Exactly. Did you even know what it means, unlawfully driving away? To do with hitting a person or a pedestrian running off? That stuff. I don't know what you're saying, dude. A Canadian is American. Yeah, he's North American. He's not from the United States, if that's what you mean. Oh, that's a rental house? Is that what you think that was? They rent, but the whole house was set up like they live there though. So you'll see the thing tomorrow. Canadian Troll is nothing but a grifter. We all know it. He's a total grifter. Bragging about how expensive his house is, bragging about how the expensive cognac that he drinks. Let me tell you something about cognac. Okay, the more expensive it is, the shittier it tastes. Ain't no doubt about that. There's a stuff I used to work at fine dining, and there's a stuff called Louis the 13th. It's either brandy or cognac or something. And somebody ordered a shot for one of my in-laws, and it was like that big, and it was $90 for a shot. I'm like, let me just give me a little tiny little sip of that. I sipped it, dude. It tasted like straight gasoline. It just tasted like you're sipping something flammable. I don't get alcohol, man. Anyway, I'm gonna go eat my bacon and onion angel hair. Oh, somebody wanted a song. Okay, American Pie. Nah, not American Pie. Skinner, play some Skinner. Play some Skinner. Give me back my bullets. My guitar, man. I don't even know if it's ready to go. It's a rental, and there's several roommates. Ah, that might be what's up. Someone has videos of that. Yeah, I have a video of it. The United States is not a country. It's a union of small countries called states. Okay. However you want to look at it, bro. Remy. Oh, Remy. Remy boys. Oh man, I really wish I knew it. I got a Glock in my Rari. That's all I remember from when I visit Florida. It's barbecue and visiting Filax bucket list. Shout out to Larry Downs Jr. If you guys don't know who Larry Downs Jr. is, please go to his YouTube channel and subscribe. The guy helped me out today. He helped me out a lot. Auditors don't make cops act bad. They do that all by themselves. All by themselves. I'm sorry, I was not supposed to say that. I don't know. Sandra, you're having like side conversations with people. I'm trying to keep up and I can't. Is Europe a country? Nope. I get alcohol a lot. Frank Pants, you like the alcohol, huh? I don't get it. Beer's okay. A cold beer every now and then is okay. Maybe a beer and a shot, but I don't even drink, so it's too strong for me. I could burn down a whole cigar, so to speak. But I drink a one beer, man. I want to take a nap. Anyway, he was flexing an Airbnb. Okay. Cheap cognac is the best. Ugh, cognac. Oh, that stuff's gross. That effer is a fraud. Anyone can post a picture of a mansion and claim it's theirs. It didn't even look like a mansion to me. I wonder if Clash with Bow has Frauditor Troll leaked videos. I wonder that too. Frauditor Troll never speaks to the law of auditing, only his personal opinions, which are ignorant. Ex-bootlegger doesn't drink anymore or any less. All right, let me think of a song, man. I'm doing good, Vince, if you're watching. Thanks for asking. A song. Man, I can't. Nothing's popping. Hey, shorty, baby, I got your money. Don't you worry. I said, hey, Copperhead Road. That's some country. What does that say? Mrs. Frauditor got run through by a caribou. Oh, baby, baby, what was I supposed to do? 6.5 years sober, dude. Congratulations, Jerry. What's up, DJ K. The party? I know I've seen your videos. ODB. Tiff was singing along. Hey, shorty, baby, I got your money. Don't you worry. I said, hey, baby, I got your money. I want a better song, but what are you going to do? Yeah, that's it. You guys good? Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Much love, peace, tranquility. Come tomorrow night, and Auditing Erie County and I are going to break down another one of Frauditor Troll's fraud videos where he lied about auditing Erie County. Why is that so hard for me to say? Auditing Erie County. Everybody, thank you, man. Have a great day. Thanks for coming. Hit the thumbs up on your way out. Consider joining. It's 99 cents a month. Give it to me, I'm worth it. Give it to me, I'm worth it. Oh yeah, I'm worth it. See you, Lycan. Bye, everybody. Have a good night. Much love. I'm going to watch The Sopranos. You gabagoo. You Tizon. You Skajo. Why does he get to make all the shy business when he's got the Skaru? Hey, Mutsare. Ah, ah, ah. See you.